Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me and allowing me to continue to be your daily advocate. If you're new here or you're not subscribed for any reason, please do me a huge favor and hit the subscribe button. Thank you to all of you who have been watching and following me for so long. It truly means a lot, and I'm glad that I can be this person.
I feel like a lot has actually happened since the last time we talked about the Ripple SEC case. There's been a lot of interesting stuff going on. It seems like the SEC's main tactic at this point is to stall. I haven't seen any really convincing evidence out of them at all regarding any material evidence on why they believe XRP should be a security of Ripple. So I'm kind of curious what you think about everything going on there, and yeah.
So at this point, watching the case, it's pretty obvious the SEC is getting their butts handed to them. And the question at this point is really who is drawing the case out. So you've got the SEC that's probably wanting to settle at this point. They feel like they've dipped their toes into something they can't win. And you've got Ripple that only wants to settle on a basis where it gives them clarity in the market. So at this point, I think Ripple is probably more likely the ones dragging it out to get a better end result from the case. The other possibility is that if the SEC always knew they were going to lose this case, then they're stalling to get the desired result that they had going into the case, which would be something to the benefit of the Treasury or the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. It's almost like a little mind-boggling to think how the SEC got themselves into this position, because you look at a lot of the points they're trying to argue, and it's not a lot of, I'm not a lawyer, but you've seen lawyers speculate this, and even a lot of them are kind of baffled on why the SEC would do things like charge the Ripple founders with fraud, which requires such a high bar in what you have to prove. And that has allowed Ripple to get a lot of documents they might otherwise not have gotten. So that is a very interesting position that the SEC decided to take, and now it's really hurting them in this case going forward.
Yeah, and you really do have to wonder, just from an outside perspective, and I'm not an attorney or a lawyer, I have no legal background, but there's historical examples that aren't necessarily in the business realm, something like Casey Anthony, where when you go for the death penalty on a young 20-something attractive female, it's a really hard sell, to a jury, and that's kind of what the SEC did. They went for a really hard line on a very popular company with a lot of backing, and you just can't imagine that they thought they were going to win it.
No. So I've seen some interesting quotes out of, did you see the quote out of Stuart Alderati regarding his comparison to this case to, I believe the book was Moby Dick, and essentially he was comparing Jay Clayton to Captain Abe, in which he was trying to hunt the white whale. So that quote by Stuart Alderati, and there's a lot of different hands in play, so it's hard to analyze just one person's comments and say, oh, this is the reason this is all happening. But that really made me think that in a lot of these meetings in the background, you likely had Jay Clayton and the Ripple team going to Clayton and saying, look, we just want you to give us some rules on how we get this done. And Jay Clayton, and I kind of get this vibe from him too, being that big guy at the SEC who's like, oh, you're not doing anything without my okay. And that makes me think a lot of this lawsuit, as much as I would like this not to be the case, but seems more of like a spiteful act from Clayton himself.
It does seem like there's a lot of egos at play, and I do think that Clayton probably got spanked a few times by the Ripple team in the past. And, the people who run the SEC, the people who choose that as a career, tend to be those kids who were picked on in high school. You know what I mean? They tend to be the ones that want to enforce rules that are really they're the spoil sports. They want to go around ruining people's days. So they're not there for justice, they're there for their ego.
No, yeah, and it makes me think too, and there's a ton of different scenarios, and there's likely a mix of a lot of things at play here. But if Gary Gensler, and I haven't been happy with anything he's been doing either, but if he did have this old drab dropped right on his lap and he watched this play out, and it doesn't take a lot of brain power to realize that this case was not drafted well at all. For him, it might be one of those things like, why get involved? When you see this terrible case dropped and going through the courts right now, you see the SEC losing so badly, for him, it's so easy for him to dismiss it and be like, I had nothing to do with this. I came into this agency, this lawsuit was here, we lost, it had nothing to do with me, and it's still not a good look for the SEC, but I mean, I don't know, he seems pretty reluctant at this point to settle the case. I mean, it's kind of getting worse and worse for the SEC, and he hasn't really showed any urgency to step in here.
And you have to wonder if he just got suckered and got it dumped on him and kind of got suckered into taking it on because there was that, massive political divide between the former administration and this one. And you have to wonder if it was maybe a intentional sabotage by one team or the other to bring this case at this time.
Yeah, I think something super interesting too with that is there were a lot of meetings between Jay Clayton and Gary Gensler before any of this really took place. And one thing I was kind of, it's the weirdest, Jay Clayton is really the biggest wild card for me, because throughout Gary Gensler's career, he's kind of always been saying that he thought XRP was a security, he thought Ethereum were securities, and like, regardless of like whether or not I think he's correct on that, he kind of has been consistent in saying that. He said he has contradicted himself in saying that the rules are clear. Back then he was saying they weren't clear, now he's saying they are clear. But Jay Clayton has said multiple times that he believes payment tokens and utility tokens aren't securities, and then goes and sues Ripple and says XRP is a security, but it meets the exact definition of when he was at the SEC parading around his advice saying it wasn't a security.
Yeah, so then we have to assume that he knew it's not, as he launched the suit, and he launched it the day before he left office, dumping it on Gary Gensler. So maybe he just intended for the next guy coming in to lose.
Yeah, no, and it's so hard, and the weird thing is like, as much as I kind of am down that path a lot, and I am kind of thinking along those terms, it's just so weird then to go back and see comments from the Ripple team like Stuart Alderati clearly directed at Jay Clayton, and you just sit there, you're just like, what kind of mess are we in right here? Like, I would really love to know, like, one day in the future to have like a documentary of all the hidden hands behind this. I'm sure we'll never find out.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine at some point there'll be a book released by at least somebody in there, and they'll have their take on it, and then we'll see 2 or 3 books pop up with an opposing view on it, and we'll never quite know what happened.
Do you know who Glenn Hutchinson is?
I do not.
Okay, so he was an early Ripple investor, and he's I think he was all the way back to the OpenCoin days, so he's very involved. But interestingly enough, I don't really know what he really did outside of that, but he constantly interviewed Jay Clayton back in 2017 to 2018 time period, and on like big stages, big public forums, and he was always asking Jay Clayton, because clearly this guy was a Ripple investor, he was definitely talking to the Ripple team behind the scenes, and he was always asking Jay, like, Jay, you've made statements, your agency made statements around Ethereum and Bitcoin, like, what are your thoughts on Ripple and XRP? And you would just see Jay Clayton's face get bright red. He refused to answer any questions about it. And you could tell that what we're watching play out right now in 2022 has been building up. I mean, I've seen people talking about this case happening since early 2018. So I feel like a lot of these fights have already happened behind closed doors, and right now we're watching like it all come into the public eye.
So enjoy your day, everybody. I'm always here for you. Leave any comments or questions below, and be sure to subscribe. But thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you. Enjoy your day, and I always have your back. So thanks so much, everybody.